This is one of the most heartbreaking medical negligence cases in Ghana's modern legal history. And yes, it involves a tragedy that could have been completely avoided with proper medical protocols, empathy, and honest communication between healthcare providers and patients. Mohammed Mustafa was married to Equia Nyakun Osaibonsu, a 32-year-old practicing nurse who knew the healthcare system better than most laymen. In July 2019, Equia was 12 weeks pregnant and dutifully making her regular visits to Ridge Hospital for antenatal care. During what should have been a routine checkup, doctors discovered after a scan that she had developed severe intrauterine growth restoration, which pointed at placenta insufficiency, a complication that required immediate CS. Within 24 hours of the emergency surgery, Equia developed thromboembolism, dangerous blood clots, which led to her tragic death. Mohammed took the firm view that Ridge Hospital had breached their standard of care and that his beloved wife died through negligence. He brought an action in the High Court against the state, coming with all guns blazing. His lawyers referenced the Sustainable Development Goals on Maternal Health and Mortality, the National Health Policy 2007, and further argued that every surgery must have proper pre-operative and post-operative plans and protocols. It was Mohammed's argument that as part of any hospital's standard protocol, a prophylactic anticoagulant therapy, PAT, should have been administered to his wife, and this was not done, despite the fact that he was compelled to purchase the medication. He was clear in his mind. His wife had died due to Ridge Hospital's negligence. Ridge Hospital's defense was straightforward, but revealed an outrageous lack of empathy and care that was damaging to their credibility and ultimately collapsed their case. They admitted that indeed, Equia was their patient, who presented with complications requiring immediate cesarean section. Tragically, the baby suffered from respiratory issues and died 35 minutes after being born. They indicated that Equia also died of pulmonary embolism, and that Mohammed was also responsible and may have played a role because he broke the news of the child's death to her. They alleged that they had a plan for the operation, and as part of this plan, they informed Mohammed to purchase an anticoagulant called Fragmin because it wasn't covered by National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. Their witnesses, including Dr. Frederick Zimpubi, a senior specialist and head of obstetrics, testified that on the day of surgery, Fragmin was not among the medications Mohammed had brought. They claimed that they had realized Equia couldn't breathe and borrowed another anticoagulant called Clexane from another patient to salvage the situation, but it was all in vain. They denied negligence and instead pushed the blame on Mohammed for failing to buy the drugs. Mohammed fired back aggressively with his reply. He denied failing to buy the drugs and said that even if he had failed, there were other alternatives. The hospital only borrowed medications after things had taken an irredeemable turn. The court faced a fundamental question: whose story was more believable? During the trial proceedings, the court made several critical findings that undermined Ridge Hospital's defense. First, the court found that Mohammed had a receipt in evidence of purchasing Fragmin on December 13, 2019 at exactly 6:45, contrary to what the nurses and doctors were claiming in court. Therefore, Ridge Hospital's story could not be believed. Their narrative, which pointed the blame at Mohammed for failing to buy the drugs, was therefore unsupported and directly contradicted by the evidence Mohammed brought. But matters got even worse. There was evidence proving that Fragmin was actually in stock in their own pharmacy. Considering that Ridge Hospital was designated as mother and child friendly, they should have borrowed from their own stock and replaced it later, just like they eventually did with the Clexane, but only after it was too late. The court found no proof that Mohammed's announcement of the baby's death to Equia killed her, and that part of the defense was dismissed. Key among the court's findings was the testimony of an expert witness appointed to guide the court, Dr. Isaac Osei-Granting, head of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. His testimony was devastating for Ridge Hospital. He testified that Fragmin was only a trade name and that there were cheaper alternatives like dalteparin, which was covered under NHIS. The court was left with an unavoidable question: why didn't the doctors and nurses at Ridge Hospital obtain dalteparin, which was covered under NHIS, instead of waiting until after the critical 12-hour period to belatedly administer borrowed drugs from another person to no effect? The expert's evidence perhaps put things beyond all reasonable doubt. Ridge Hospital was negligent. The court, having made that determination, had to award damages. No specific value could be placed on a human life, but assessing the facts, Justice Ali Baba Abature evaluated the entire circumstances. Equia still had 28 years of working life in her, and her family had expended so much and had suffered a double personal loss. Equia herself was gone, and her baby was also gone. The court awarded Mohammed 3 million cedis in damages, plus 10,000 cedis in costs, a judgment that sent shockwaves throughout the medical and legal community. The case teaches us one or two things. First, perhaps healthcare institutions cannot hide behind insurance coverage limitations when alternative treatments are available. Denying a queer anticoagulant therapy by failing to use available alternatives breached the standard of care and amounted to medical negligence. Where a hospital holds itself out as one that has special care for mothers and children, as Rage did, there was an even greater burden on them to show care, even if it meant bearing some costs on behalf of the patients in order to save their life. Documentation also proved absolutely crucial. Mohammed's receipt was the smoking gun that began the destruction of Rage Hospital's credibility. The money will not bring her back, but perhaps the accountability will prevent reoccurrence. Follow Superlaw GS Studios for more real stories, real cases, real people.